Welcome to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. In our first segment, we'll be speaking with Chris Steinhauser. He is the superintendent at Long Beach Unified. Sir, I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And I want to speak with you about the recent budget passed by the legislature through serious negotiations with the governor. It really revolutionizes how California education is funded, K-12, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Is that a fair assessment, sir?
Oh, it's right on target. It's the first time we've actually totally revised how we do things in California in over 30 years.
And so let's talk about some specific areas, and that's how we fund students that may face additional challenges. As I understand it, under the new formula, the schools will get a bump in the base grant. But then for schools that educate challenged students, it could be ESL, it could be coming from impoverished areas, there will be more money flowing per student.
Correct.
But if a school district has 55%, that's a higher threshold of students in those categories, there'll be another bump.
Correct.
What do you think about this?
Well, we have advocated for this type of program for a long time. So everybody in California is going to be bumped. So they'll have more resources.
Bumped to pre-recession levels?
They've used targets 2007, 2008.
So
now,
there are bumps to those levels?
Absolutely. For just the regular base, it varies from district to district. It could be $300 to $400. So
okay.
That's a good thing. Then every single district that has a foster child, a poor student,
right,
or an EL student gets an additional amount per that student.
Right. I think it's about 20%.
Correct.
There was discussion about giving a 35% bump.
Right. They lowered that to 20 so
right,
they could raise the base for everybody.
I understand.
And then if you have 55% combination of those groups, then you get an additional bump.
About 50%.
Correct, of the allocation to all students.
Right.
Because when you have higher concentrations of poor students or students with EL or students that are in great need,
right,
it takes a lot more to bring them up to proficiency.
So they total the number of students. If it breaks 55%, you'll get that additional bump per student.
Correct.
That could be a 70% bump.
For some systems that are 100% poverty and,
yes,
and so on, they're going to...
But per student, let's say you...
Correct.
That is in some ways very exciting. Mm-hmm. In other ways, is it equitable?
Absolutely, because in the old system, school districts that there was no consistency of funding, so you could have one school district receiving hundreds of dollars less per student, and now everyone will grow, and it's over an 8-year period. So you're not going to get all this money at one time. So for example, class size reduction, everyone will get additional money for class size reduction.
K3?
K3.
That's going to happen again?
Correct, with the goal of being to 24 to 1.
24.
24 to 1 unless you negotiate something differently within your local level. See, that the nice thing of this, what we call the LCFF, the local control funding formula, is that they're giving these resources with accountability standards and allowing locals to make the decision on how to spend these resources.
And let's expand on that, because there was something known as categorical requirements. Right. And you explained to me that it's specific money for specific programs, close to 70 of those.
Correct.
As of the recent budget, how many are left?
The majority of them are gone. I would say there are probably less than 8.
That's a stunning change in literally a flash.
Overnight.
Literally overnight.
But you have to also remember, the governor has been working on this program for over 2 years.
I know, but still, it happened.
But this is people, I really don't think people realize that this is a quiet revolution that will reap dividends for decades to come.
What about the school districts that are, in more suburban areas? They don't have high concentrations of EL learners or whatever it may be. I mean, couldn't you almost have a reverse kind of Serrano versus Priest situation where the wealthier districts are being disadvantaged vis-a-vis the poorer districts?
Absolutely not, because in the wealthier districts, right, you have students who are coming in at very high levels of proficiency and above, and currently you have those districts who are, in some cases, parents are bringing in $800 to $1,000 more. They've even kept
the PTA.
Well, and they've kept class size reduction where other school districts, there's no way those parents could do that.
Right.
So you really did have unbelievable dual systems where people that were wealthy or middle class to above were actually having a totally different system than maybe a system just 5 miles down the street.
I want to talk about this kind of lack of centralized control. There are pluses to that, no doubt. You will be able to decide how your dollars are spent. But how do we make sure that, look, this is a large state, 37 million people, 58 counties, that the educational systems are similar from Long Beach to Lassen? I mean, without some type of centralized control.
There will be, as we speak, there will be the State Board of Education will come up with an accountability standard of metrics that everybody must meet, whether you're a suburban, an urban, or rural district. There must be progress to those issues. And if you don't meet progress, then there will be sanctions on those issues. So the taxpayer needs to know that, yes, there will be great accountability, but there's also going to be a big requirement for every single school district, no matter where you're at, for parental and community participation. So if a school system isn't doing well, the community has to hold them accountable. There's for the first time now, we're going to develop a plan when we develop our budget. So we're going to have our budget here, and we're going to have an instructional plan here. They have to match. And then it will be approved by the county, then sent to the state.
At the same time, while this revolution is going on with funding, there's another revolution coming down the pike, and that's the Common Core standards.
Yes.
That 45 states have adopted, including California, really going to change the way students are educated. I know in the governor's budget there's been money set aside, over $1 billion, to help implement Common Core standards. Explain that process, because that also is a significant change.
Absolutely, and so what the governor's budget does, it gives approximately $167 per student to every single school district. Long Beach will get about $15 million over the next 2 years. You have to spend it on technology, professional development, and materials. So
for Common Core.
For Common Core. So we in Long Beach will be spending the bulk of it on technology, making sure that all of our schools have all the computers that they need.
In the simplest sense, I mean, I know Common Core is a very complicated subject, but in the most basic terms, how is Common Core different than what we have today?
Common Core is different than we have today in the sense that algebra will be algebra for all 45 states. There will not be different programs. So for example, algebra in California could be much more rigorous than algebra in Mississippi today. There will be a common test. So there are 2 testing companies developing these tests. You have to choose from one of these 2 companies. They're co-developing these tests, so they're the same test basically. So when you take the algebra test in California, it's the same as in New York, Alabama, any state that's adopted the Common Core. So for the first time in our nation's history, come 2014-15, people will be able to say, how are our students in California doing compared to these other states?
Right. We're coming from the same.
Absolutely.
We're comparing apples and apples.
It's like
apples.
the SAT. When you take the SAT, you really have a comparison of a like group.
But what about the question of these standardized tests? Because there has been a lot of pushback that we are teaching to the test. Superintendent of Public Instruction Tom Torlakson of California has come out and wants to reform the way we do standardized testing. Is Common Core going to further entrench standardized testing?
The Common Core is about problem solving, it's about critical thinking. The new test will be computer adapted. There will be items on there that you will say, why did you choose A? And there may not be one right answer. You're going to have to write out your answers. That's totally different than saying the answer is C. That's all you need to know. So some of them you'll have to write out. Some of them will be what they call short essay. Some of them are going to be longer term, where they're going to take a couple days to take. So, and the computer adapted tests will move you along.
But let me ask, for a student that's entering kindergarten this fall, Common Core is slowly implementing, they can adjust. What about for a 6th grader who's not lived under Common Core? All of a sudden it gets thrust on them. It's a different way of living and thinking and educating.
Many districts like Long Beach have already started implementing Common Core. So we have worked with our teachers on the shifts of what the new focus is. We've actually worked on new assessments. So by the time our students take the test, they will be prepared. So we're not worried. All of our math programs are totally aligned to Common Core
already. Is your
Yeah.
sense that similar alignments occur throughout the state with your sister districts?
No. Many districts have, and the power that we have today is that we're sharing those resources.
Okay.
So many of us are collaborating with each other.
His name is Chris Steinhauser, Superintendent at Long Beach Unified. When we come back, we'll be speaking with Tom Kissinger. He is the Director of Elementary Education at Burbank Unified. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back on Charter California Edition.
How many public school students are educated in California?
Welcome back to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest is Dr. Tom Kissinger. He is the Director of Elementary School Education at Burbank Unified. And sir, I'm so pleased you're here to discuss two new programs launching at Burbank Unified, which is surprising to say, given that education has really suffered over the last few years, but it's looking better.
I would say so. I think these two programs are really some wonderful things that we have going on in Burbank Unified School District. Transitional kindergarten, we actually started last year.
Oh, okay.
That's one of them.
So let's talk about
Sure.
Let's not bring up the other one yet. We'll have to tease the guests when it's coming up. I want to ask you about transitional kindergarten. I was born on October 2nd. And back in the olden days, that put me in kindergarten when I was 4, about to turn 5. And, you know, I was an overachiever, but I think I could have benefited by being held back. I was a smaller kid. What would happen today?
Well, Brad, if you were a 4-year-old turning 5 today, it would be completely different because you would be eligible for a transitional kindergarten in the state of California.
And the
what
deadline is?
October 2nd.
October 2nd. So I would be the first kid to enter the room for transitional kindergarten.
That's right. You would have to have been born between October 2nd and December 2nd of 2000,
Whatever relevant year it is.
2008. Yeah.
So explain to me exactly what TK is.
Well, TK is an opportunity for it's the first of a 2-year kindergarten program in the state of California, and it's an opportunity for younger children to actually get exposure to the content standards and the entire kindergarten program a year before the traditional kindergarten year starts.
Okay, and so is this a program that you opt into, or you're born November 1st? Can you say, no, I'd like my child to move into kindergarten? How does it work?
Well, the way it works is, first of all, in the state of California, kindergarten is not mandatory. So children don't have to come to public school until they're 6 years old. However, if you were born between these particular dates, your only option in public schools would be transitional kindergarten.
And let's say you're in TK and the teacher just simply believes that you really should advance to first grade after TK. Is that an option or not really?
It is an option.
It is.
And it's not something that happens typically, but this year was our first year of TK in Burbank. So
How'd it go?
It went great. We had 2 full classes, we had wonderful teachers, and we have very happy parents. And we have children who are now really ready to go on to kindergarten.
Are any advancing straight to first grade?
A few are.
They are.
We had 64 children in transitional kindergarten, 2012, 2013.
Right.
And we probably have 3 children who are going to be advancing right to first grade. And there's a reason why they're advancing. It's because not only did the focus for TK wasn't mastery of the content standards, it was exposure. But these children mastered the content standards anyway.
Right.
And not only that, they were emotionally and behaviorally ready to take on the rigors of going to first grade. So we didn't just say, oh, well, your teacher says or your parents say that you can go on, you can go. We actually had to have a student study team meeting where we met in the second trimester and then toward the end of the year and made that determination so that it would really be in the best interest of the child. But it's not typical, though.
And it's that obvious. I mean, it amazes me that at the age of 5, you can tell that these 3 kids were in the top 5% of that class and really needed the additional challenge of going straight to first grade.
Well, part of it, Brad, is the way that we differentiate our instructional program. Our teachers in Burbank are highly trained and highly skilled, and the teachers we hired were really able to know exactly what the needs of each child really were. And so when they made these decisions, we didn't make them lightly. We had a lot of background information on them.
But it's still amazing to me that one can tell that a 5-year-old is already advancing beyond his peers or her peers.
Well, yeah, these kids were actually readers already, too.
So you had a sense. Yeah. I want to talk about your second program, and that is a bona fide new program launching this fall. It's a program that has become very popular throughout Southern California and California generally.
Sure.
And that is the Dual Immersion Language Program. Congratulations. I wish my daughters could have been admitted into one. They were not selected. Why don't you tell us about Dual Immersion at Burbank?
Sure.
Well, we have some neighboring districts, neighboring school districts that have some dual immersion programs, and what we found, our parents in our district were coming to us and saying, we'd like to have it too, we'd like you to look into it. And our school board was very instrumental in giving us direction and giving our superintendent direction to tell staff to look into a dual immersion program. And the more research we did, the more we liked it. And we found that we went to several other school districts that had dual immersion programs, did a tremendous amount of research, and we decided to start with Spanish as our language program, along with English for next year.
In some ways makes sense. I mean, obviously we're in Southern California, but I do think about that portion of the San Fernando Valley merging into the San Gabriel Valley, high concentrations of Asian populations.
You're right, and actually people asked us about various different languages. Mandarin was one. Armenian is another.
Of course, Burbank. What am I saying?
We have several students who speak Armenian too. But what we wanted to do in the pilot year of the program next year is make sure that we operated a program where we could access a lot of resources, some of the resources that mirror our current textbook adoptions too, and really with languages, with a language that had that we could actually have access to many teachers
and resources. I mean,
and
we are
resources.
Southern California.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I get it. So explain the program. Who are the students that are going to be part of this first kindergarten dual immersion class?
Well, the first kindergarten dual immersion class, which will occur next year at Disney Elementary School in our district, the students, we have 29 students for the class.
Selected by lottery, I understand.
Yeah, the students were selected by lottery, and the way we did the lottery is we basically it was a lottery for two different groups.
Okay.
The first group were students who are either English learners or bilingual, speaking Spanish and English too.
Got it.
The second group were English-only students. We wanted to make sure we had a good balance between the two groups too. And it looks like we have a pretty good balance. We're right now 2/3 English speakers and 1/3 bilingual or English learners.
What should be interesting, as I understand, in the first year, the instruction is 80% Spanish, 20% English. So
That's
those
right.
2/3, I mean, they're in for a surprise.
They are in for a surprise, but we actually had our parent orientation meeting last night. We almost all of our parents came. They met their teacher, they met their principal, and they're really thrilled and they're ready for the challenge.
I have to say, I mean, this is just a quick story. My cousin moved to Russia. He's a New York Times reporter, and he had a 5-year-old. And the 5-year-old walked into a Russian-speaking school, and he came out the first day, and he turned to his mom and said, "Mom, do you know that they speak another language there?" She said, "Yes, I do," and that was it. And he just kept going, and within a couple months, he was fine.
Sure.
And I'm sure it will be the same thing for these English students.
I think so too, and I think one of the keys, Brad, is that we've really done a great job at hiring a great teacher, and the other part of it is we have a superintendent and a school board that is very supportive of this, and so they're willing to see this through all the way for the next several years too.
And so
we
you're
have a
going
long-term
to
plan.
you'll be adding, next year will be first in kindergarten, the year after that. Are you going to go beyond 5th grade? Because I've noticed a lot of schools, they stop their dual immersion at 5th grade.
We actually have a plan to go not only through middle school, but into high school as well, too. So you're absolutely correct. Many school districts kind of stop their programs in 5th grade, and we kind of saw that, not only do we don't really see the value in that, because we want to make sure that the kids maintain the language skills that they've developed and develop that common underlying proficiency in both languages.
Now, for either your TK program or your dual immersion program, do you allow for inter-district transfers?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure, we do.
So if you live in the area, you can apply into the program and you'll be considered part of the lottery or the TK program as available.
Sure. What we do is we have our students who live in Burbank and participate in the program. None of these programs are really married to home schools right now, except for the dual immersion program. But we have an intra-district transfer process, and we have inter-districts for people whose parents work in the city and they want to come in anyway.
Tom Kissinger, thanks for joining us. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back on Charter California Edition.
What percentage of dual language immersion program in California's public school teach English and Spanish?
Welcome back to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest is Yelena Popovic. Now, her story is a unique one. We spend a lot of time focusing on immigration, often discussing immigrants from Central America, South America, Asia. But Yelena, who was a model, she's an actress, a writer, a producer, a director, comes from the former Yugoslavia. And you decided to write, produce, and co-direct a film called LA Superheroes Illegal in Hollywood. It's semi-autobiographical, and I wanted to have you join us because it is a story that is unique, but really speaks to the challenges of those that want to live the American dream.
Yes, it does. Well,
in so many ways.
in so many ways. Well, I came to United States because this is the country where you can have a dream and work hard and make your dreams come true, regardless of where you come from, regardless of whether you have some privileges or not.
Right.
And that's why I came here.
And the irony is you came in around the mid-90s. Your country is falling apart. Yugoslavia is literally falling apart at the seams, and yet that didn't get you status to stay in the States.
No, I came on a visa from Milan because I couldn't come straight from Belgrade because I believe embassy was closed, the American embassy at the time. So I came here. I had the regular working papers, and because of whether it was a mistake when it was sent or where and how, basically everything fell apart after that.
It's a bureaucratic maze.
Yes.
We know that the immigration system is so layered. And in your film, do we see the, quote, fictional character suffer through the immigration maze?
You see the suffering of an immigrant. Not only a model actress in Hollywood, which can be hard, but an immigrant on top of everything.
Literally.
Yeah.
And what's so interesting is we presume that if you're beautiful and a model and an actress and you come from an exotic location, oh, you'll be taken care of. Yeah, it's just not the case.
It's not the case. It took me almost 18 years to get my green card.
Literally.
Literally.
And talk to us about the letters you were getting with regard to deportation over those 18 years.
Well, it's a really scary process.
Right.
I can obviously I came here to make something happen. I live here. Well,
and you have.
Thank God now.
Right. Yes.
I lived here for a long time. I have two children.
Right.
One was at the time very young. He's 13 now, and of course, your papers are not. I didn't get my green card yet, and they sent me a letter saying, "Well, we don't believe your story. We're denying your case. You have to leave the country."
And at that point, were you married?
At that point, I wasn't married.
So you had a child.
I had a child, and I thought I was just going to get my papers. Like I've been here
for. Did they not believe?
For 10 years. Well, they thought like, oh well, because I was married previously, that marriage wasn't really
sham marriage,
really valid. But because I had to reapply later, and that was basically an excuse for them to deny me, because anybody they could deny, they would just deny you.
I think about the last decade, and that was the mood of the time.
Yes. And it was, then I ended up in immigration court, and that is a long waiting list.
But give us a sense of what was happening. You'd get a letter saying you need to come to court in 9 months. We're in deportation proceedings.
Yes.
And what would then happen?
Well, first, of course, you have an attorney. You're completely stressed out. I mean, where I'm going to go? I can't just leave and go back. I've spent half of my life here, and I have a child. I can't just take him. If I had to be separated from my child, I'd rather be dead.
Your child's a citizen.
He's a citizen,
and mind you, Serbia, I mean, it's doing all right now, but
no, but
5,
also
10 years
his
ago,
father lives here, so I would end up like not seeing my kid, which would be not an option.
But you'd have a court date set. And then what?
And then, of course, you get another letter saying, oh, we are busy, our schedule is busy. It's changed for 18 months down the road.
Painful.
Very painful. Then again, well, another 6 months. Then another 9 months. So you can end up in immigration court for 5 years just to see the judge.
And in some way, it's a reprieve, because you're not being deported until you see the judge. But in the other way, it's that kind of torture, that water dripping from the faucet that you can't stop.
And you can't resolve anything in the process. You can't leave the country. I couldn't leave the country for 10 years.
And that led to a very painful incident for you. What happened during those 10 years with your father?
Well, as I said, I came here to make something happen. And my father played a really big role in my life because he was somebody who was very smart, and he couldn't have a good life because of the system that he was living
Communism.
in. Yes, and I wanted to show him that I can do it, and he passed away before the film was done. And I still did not have my green card resolved
And
at
that
the time.
meant?
And that meant I couldn't go to his funeral. I couldn't go to his funeral. I haven't
rendered
seen
speechless.
him. No, I haven't seen him in 10 years. And it just happened. He had a weak heart. He had a couple of heart attacks, and he didn't make it. And it's a story that a lot of immigrants share.
I hate to say this, it's not unique.
No, it's not.
And here you are, this beautiful woman who would presumably have privilege. You can't even get out to see your father.
No.
Think about people who may not have the resources you have, the cachet that you have. And that's what 11 million immigrants, I'm not trying to take a position, but
of course,
that's what 11 million immigrants who are undocumented face day in and day out.
It's very difficult.
It's very, very difficult. Talk to me about making this movie, LA Superheroes Illegal in Hollywood. I can only imagine, was it cathartic or was it painful? What was it?
Well, now it's cathartic.
Now it is.
Finished.
Now the catharsis. Well,
yes,
aside from finishing the product, but still, the film's semi-autobiographical.
Yes,
so.
it is. I actually wrote a couple of other projects.
Okay.
And being in Hollywood, not having a status of a superstar, it's very hard to raise money.
Right.
For the films. And I finally thought, what can I do that I can do myself, that I don't have to wait for anybody?
Right.
And I thought of my story of a model, actress, immigrant, and I thought there was a movie there. And,
Clearly.
and that's how it happened. We got cameras, we shot everything on 7D camera, and it was 17-day shoot.
Not bad.
We did it in a few months because it's a guerrilla style shoot. You have to wait for the time when everyone's available. But we were able to complete it. Then maybe 6 months of editing, and a year down the line,
it's released.
It's released.
But here's the question, though. As a model, as an actress, you're always revealing yourself. Like you're metaphorically naked. You're
Yes.
always presenting yourself to the public. But you've gone a step further. You have not only presented yourself, you've presented your story. Which I can't imagine many people knew, and now the world knows. And my hat's off to you. It is.
No, thank you.
But so what I'm trying to wonder is, how has that been for you? Has it been painful or has it been liberating?
It's been liberating because I believe it's going to help people. I believe that story has integrity, and it's showing that good things can happen if you have faith and you believe in yourself. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel, even though maybe it looks really bad.
What does your son think? He's 13 years old. You have a baby who's 2.5, but you're 13, they know.
I think he's very proud of me. He doesn't, I think he's seen me struggle, and he knows what I've been through, and he's very proud. He doesn't say, because I think he's so happy about it that he doesn't talk much about it.
And you ultimately received your status upgrade. You are now in this country legally.
Yes.
What happened? How'd you get it?
Well, because I'm married to an American citizen. I've been married now for 4 years.
Right.
I finally adjusted my status. Status was adjusted to a permanent resident legal status.
So can you go back to Serbia? Is your mother
yes,
still with us? Your siblings?
I've been there last year. I was there to pay respects for a year of my father passing away, which was very important to me.
Sure.
And I'm very happy I can travel. Again, it's very difficult.
You need to travel for
work.
work.
For my work, and,
Right.
and not being able to travel for 10 years, it limited me. I could have done much better, I must say.
Right. But you're on your
earlier,
way.
but I'm grateful
I
for
believe
this.
it. Okay, the film was called LA Superheroes, Illegal in Hollywood. It's in theaters as we speak. The website, LASuperheroesthemovie.com. Yelena, I want to thank you for joining us. My name is Brad Pomerance. Thank you for watching Charter California Edition.